We are honored to be here today with Gary Tyler, a man who's become a symbol in the fight against class and racial injustice in America. His case has enormous significance today with the increase of police violence and the growth of fascist forces in the government. In 1974, Gary Tyler, then a 16-year-old high school student in Destrehan, Louisiana, was falsely charged with the murder of a white youth. The frame-up occurred in the midst of court-ordered school desegregation when a mob attacked the school bus in which he was riding. Singled out by the police for defending his cousin, Gary was charged with the shooting. He would spend 2 years on death row before the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Louisiana's death penalty was unconstitutional. Gary spent nearly 42 years in the notorious Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola. Since his release in 2016, at the age of 57, Gary has become a mentor to homeless youth and an artist specializing in the use of applique pattern quilts and textiles. The Workers' League, predecessor of the Socialist Equality Party, along with the Young Socialists, predecessor of the International Youth and Students for Social Equality, played a leading role in the campaign for Tyler's freedom. In collaboration with Gary and his family, and with widespread international support, our movement carried out a determined struggle to mobilize the working class in his defense. We insisted that his frame-up was not only a vicious racist attack by the likes of the White Citizens Council, but more fundamentally, a class question. In May 1976, Gary's mother, Mrs. Juanita Tyler, and his brother Terry attended and spoke at the 4th National Conference held by the Young Socialists here in Detroit. The conference responded to their appeals with standing ovations and pledged to go all out in Gary's defense. In response, we collected over 100,000 signatures demanding the dropping of all charges and his immediate release. We collected support from unions representing millions of workers. And on December 4th, 1976, the Young Socialists held a demonstration of hundreds of workers and youth from all parts of the U.S. in Harlem, New York, where Terry was one of the featured speakers. Tom Heenahan, a leader of the Workers' League, played a key role in organizing the march. Tom was murdered in October 1977 at a fundraising event for Gary's defense. We're proud here to have the opportunity to speak to Gary.
Yes.
My first question, for the entire length of your imprisonment, which was nearly 42 years, you never wavered from your innocence. What gave you the fortitude to do that? How important to you and others was the international campaign for your release?
Well, I feel no matter whatever circumstances that individual experienced, if you are falsely accused of something, the worst thing you can do is just relent. Because when you do that, you're surrendering your rights, you're surrendering your soul, you're giving people the control of who you are. And when you do that, you no longer have a voice to speak for yourself. And I felt that my innocence was the most compelling thing about my case. And yes, I felt that if I would have, you could say, would have relented in any form or fashion, then it wouldn't give me any grounds whatsoever to fight a just cause.
Very, very important. Could you describe for a young generation your experiences in Angola.
Mhm.
You said that the inmates protected you. Why?
Well, it's it's a thing where people, it's not hard to explain. It's very simple. We're talking about something that happened that shouldn't happen, where not only a young kid lost his life, but also a young kid being accused of committing a murder and then having to be tried for his life and found guilty and given a death penalty. That was appalling for a lot of people. Even the men in prison themselves. The men in prison wouldn't have cared whether I was guilty or not. When they saw me, they didn't see a threat. When they saw me, they saw a child. They saw a kid that being put in one of the worst prisons in the nation back there. A prison that was violent. A prison that they knew that a young kid like me would have a hard time surviving. As men who had choices in their life, whether to come to prison or not, but unfortunately made the decision that rendered them going to prison. Those are men, some men that was family men, who had family they left behind, young sons, and who had been in prison to where they didn't have the comfort of raising their son. And when they saw me, they saw their son. When they saw me, they saw their little brother that they left behind. They saw their neighbor's child. And knowing that they got this young kid in prison, what they gonna do? Are they gonna sit back and let the prison itself destroy this young man, possibly murder this kid in prison? Or are they gonna step forward as men, responsible men, or live up to this you could say this view that people have that Angola have heartless, soulless men that don't give a damn about no one, even a child. No.
True.
No, it wasn't. These men felt compelled to stand up and do what was right, whether they were innocent or guilty themselves while in prison. They knew that they couldn't just stand by and let this happen.
It's a very strong, it's a powerful message, actually.
Yes, it is.
And that's the message that they were sending.
Yes.
What did your artistic work, both in leading the drama group for 28 years and in quilting, teach you?
It taught me discipline. It taught me compassion. It taught me the art of communication.
Interesting.
That what you may express verbally or through writing a letter, that you can get your message just as clearly as doing drama, where people can see that what is going on around them through the eyes of other people. And drama had, it changed. It was quite transformative to many men in prison itself. And I learned that it was quite therapeutic. That I was, I knew men that couldn't read, couldn't write, knew men that had mental problems, and those men had a hard time in prison because they had a difficult time in understanding the rules and regulations of the prison. And we had guards that they didn't understand that. They felt that these guys was being defiant. These guys were just ignoring the rules. When how you expect someone that dealing with mental issues, taking medication, to understand such rules?
Yeah.
But when I allowed them in the drama club, and the drama club was an organization where, equal opportunity for anyone. We don't care what background you have, where you come from, whatever. But it was an equal opportunity organization. And matter of fact, we had the most, we had the biggest, we could say, recidivism rate in you could say in the prison with the organization because, we allowed guys who had problems in adjusting to the prison rules. And they're here today and they may be gone tomorrow. Yeah. But when they come back, they were always welcome back in the organization. Yeah. Until finally they got it. You understand? That they don't have to always be rebellious. That they can just utilize the little freedom that they have and make the best of it.
Yeah. That's interesting. As you said, you got the best out of them and they gave the best.
They gave, yes. And it was a thing where in the education building, there was this sign that stated, "Don't do time, let time do you." Mm-hmm. It's a thing where you utilize the time to your advantage. While you are there, you have an opportunity
make the most of it.
To make the most of
it. I have two last questions I hope we're able to do.
Yeah.
What has been the response to your unjust incarceration from audiences that you have spoken to both since your release? And what was your feeling about the international protests that took place against the murder of George Floyd and other murderers? And millions of people marched and protested.
Well, I would like to say that the support that I have gotten initially from young men and women who rallied around my case, that when they saw me, they saw themselves. They saw their friends. And they knew that if it could happen to me, it could happen to them. And that forced them to take a stand, that we have to do something to save this, one of our peers, because we are talking about a system that was determined to execute him. Yeah. And they just couldn't stand by and allow that to happen.
That was one of our slogans. It could be you, it could be
me.
Gary Tyler must be free.
Yes. Yeah. And it was like my mother used to always tell me, Gary, you can't give up under no circumstances. She said, even if I'm dead and gone, you got to continue to fight. You met my mother. You know how strong-willed my mother was.
Brings me to my last question. You clearly radiate hope for the future. And that is especially inspiring coming from you and what you're going through. Why are you so hopeful?
Say the last thing.
Why are you so hopeful?
I'm hopeful because when I got out of prison, I didn't leave prison a broken man, a dispirited man. I left prison a whole man, a man that had been deprived of many things, wasn't able to take advantage of most things that people take for granted. But I knew that being free, it gave me the latitude of being able to live a life to where I can give back. And having to come out here and knowing that the things that I read in the newspapers and saw on television and saw the young people like Black Lives Matter and a whole lot of other young organizations and people standing up, it encouraged me knowing that I was not only coming into a world where there were still challenges and adversities, but I was coming into a world where the young people that were going to make the changes in this country that is necessary by every and all means necessary.
It's a powerful message. I have one last question, actually.
Hey.
What gave you the fortitude to continue that fight? You said to me yesterday that you knew you had a lot of support.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you want to elaborate on that.
You know, it's easy for a person to give up when they're alone. But when you have the support of your family and having a strong mother as I had, and all that translates into the hard work that she put in to getting out the message and having to encourage people and people seeing how spirited she was and that she's fighting for her son. And you know that your mother traveling around the country to save your life, the worst thing you can do is to ever give up. Seeing the people, young people that are demonstrating the newspapers that you get, the letters that you would get back then, you understand, that you don't have the luxury. Matter of fact, you don't even have the right to give up on those who were making the very sacrifices to save your life. And we're talking about people like Richard Dunn, who was murdered, a supporter of mine that was coming from SUNY University, that was gunned down. We're talking about Tom Hennigan, who was murdered. Those are people that sacrificed their lives. And for me to just give up, no, it wouldn't, no, I couldn't do that. No, because, it's too many people have given up too much to help me. So no, I couldn't give up at all.
Gary, thank you. It was a pleasure. And looking forward to more activity on your part, more of your artwork, which is fantastic. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's just another expressive side of it, brother. That's all.